Oh, yes, indeed. You damn right. It is a Monday. It's a recruiting hour after a huge weekend for Texas in terms of the draft. A record 11 guys get drafted. We've been covering that and talking about it throughout the day. Also, recruiting, as we always say, recruiting never stops. So we continue with a recruiting hour that will deal with a little bit of transfer portal. And there was a big rivals camp over the weekend as well. Jason Sukamel is ready to roll. We want to give a quick shout out to our guy, Jeff Ketchum. He's moving into a new place. You got to get the power turned on and everything hooked up. We all know what that's like, right? You're waiting for the guy to show up to hook up something. Ketch is going through that today. Hopefully he'll be able to be back on Orange Bloods Live tomorrow. So Jason, ready to roll here with a few different things. Hope you had a good weekend and you got the rivals.com shirt ready to go. You're representing. You did go to that camp. Let's start with a running back update. Jordan Davison, anybody?
Yeah, honestly, was not expecting that to be our headline news story this morning when I rolled out of bed, Chad. But Adam Gorney from Rivals.com did his rumor mill deal, and he said, "Hey, man, I think Jordan Davison. I think Texas might be pretty much out of it for Jordan Davison," which was pretty interesting because going back a couple months ago, right, we were talking about Jordan Davison. I think we did a whole show designed about Jordan Davison. You and Ketch and I did because. Yeah. At the time, Texas looked pretty good, right? Ohio State lost its running backs coach and all this other stuff was happening. So, in fact, I had my future cast in for the Texas Longhorns. Chad, I just changed it during the intro.
Oh,
I just changed it during the intro countdown. I was looking at his rivals page. I'm like, oh, time to change that. So I am now in on Ohio State for Jordan Davison. But so this morning, like I said, Adam Gorney he reported that it sounds like Texas may be all but out on this. I kind of sniffed around on this one, and I don't think they're all but out. I think they're out. Okay, it's going to be Ohio State. It's going to be Oregon. It's going to be Alabama. It's going to be Michigan. I think there's some flexibility there where he might add in maybe one more school, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to be those four schools. Now, here's where things really get interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I checked around this afternoon and I just with some sources in Austin. I said, hey, like, is that just due to y'all having such a talented young running back room? What do you think caused this? That was my initial perception. He probably said, okay, I have an easier path to playing time at Ohio State or Oregon or maybe even Alabama. Kind of the word I got, Chad, is like, nah, this was very much a mutual decision. I think Texas might have even been the one that said, hey, Jordan, maybe some of these other options might be better for you. So really interesting. It's not often you hear that kind of backstory with a 5-star skill player from modern day high school. But, I'm not sure who made the first move towards this, what I'm calling a breakup at this point. But what I'm hearing is that first call might have come from Austin.
Interesting. Alan throws in a chat here, Jason, see if you agree. Sounds like he didn't want to wait or be the workhorse, and that's not going to happen at Texas right now. Maybe, I guess, the idea of he might want more workload than Texas could give him.
Well, I think there's some truth to that, Alan, that, again, you got to have a different kind of mindset is the way it was described to me, to be in this Texas running back room because they produce elite players. They recruit at a high level. They're going to continue to recruit at a high level. If Jordan Davison came to Texas, they're going to recruit some badasses right behind him, right? So you got to have the mindset like, I'm coming in. I don't care who else is there. I don't care if it's Adrian Peterson in that room ahead of me. I'm coming in to compete and take jobs. And, I don't know. It's just like I don't think it was a great fit there. It makes me wonder, maybe Texas feels really good, as I think they should, about their position with James Simon. They've got Ricky Stewart committed, of course. So, maybe a guy like James Simon, maybe that's the mindset they're looking for. Hey, this dude's not afraid to come in and compete. I'm not saying Jordan Davison's afraid to compete. If he's going to Alabama or Ohio State or Oregon or Michigan, I should mention Michigan's in there too, he's going to have competition, right? But maybe not quite as stacked in front of him as Texas has. So I do think, Alan, there's some truth to that, but I don't have all the answers to that right now. All I know is it's not going to be Texas, barring a complete 180-degree change. And the other thing I know, Texas is okay with that right now.
Interesting. Alan, thank you for that chat. Interesting chat here. Afternoon, y'all checking in from 25,000 feet above Kansas City.
Oh, hey.
Currently
Nice.
headed
Jareth, I will be in Vegas next week, my man. So if you're having an extended stay, let me know.
There you go, Jareth. Yes, hopefully you have a great time in Vegas. Somebody else on the running back front saying, in choice, we trust. And another one coming in here from Nathan says, Jason would think that running backs today wouldn't mind less workload, keeps tread on the tires, means more time in the NFL before they break down. Jason, a great stat that Anwar had in his article in the Sunday Pulpit this weekend, Texas going back-to-back with the first running back taken. They're the only team other than Bama that's done that in the modern draft era. I did not realize it was that elite group, but like you said, they're producing these guys along the way. So you certainly can't argue you don't end up in the NFL if you go to Texas.
No, I mean, listen, I mean, they've what, four in the last 2 years. That's incredible. And I think they'll all four make rosters. And yeah, I think you have a good chance. Probably at least three of them are going to be starting running backs at some point in their career.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, these are not just guys who are role players in the NFL either. But I think Nathan brings up a good point. I've been doing this a long time, right? I remember the days when guys were like, no, I want to come in and be the bell cow running back. I want to get my 25 carries, my 30 touches a game. I mean, be the Cedric Benson types, the true workhorse who just grinds and grinds and grinds. You talk to me, these players now, and it's in the NFL too, right? But even in college and high schoolers going to college, they don't want to be that guy anymore. It's very rare that you talk to a running back that says, yeah, I want to be the guy who gets 25 carries a game. Okay, that just doesn't happen anymore. I mean, you look at CJ Baxter and Jaden Blue. Yeah, they're in a competition for that starting job, but those dudes are so supportive of each other, and they're so supportive of Jonathan Brooks. They know that there are plenty of touches to go around. And I mean, you look at the NFL. I mean, other than maybe Derrick Henry, honestly, he's the one I can. And there's probably somebody I'm leaving out, but he's kind of your throwback guy who gets his 25 touches, right? But I mean, look at Bijan last year. I mean, how many times did I had him on my fantasy team? How many weeks was I bitching and moaning because he wasn't getting enough touches, right? So
you were the only one.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's just the nature of it. And I mean, honestly, these high school kids see it too. I mean, yeah, in high school, maybe a lot of times they are kind of that workhorse type back, but even in high school, you're seeing a lot of splitting of carries. So a lot of these guys, I think Nathan's right. A lot of them don't mind a lesser workload, but they want to be part of that basically 2, maybe 3-man rotation. Yeah. Listen, if you're coming to Austin right now with the way Tashard Choice recruits, there's no guarantee Jordan Davison would be part of that 2 or 3-man rotation. Certainly not in year one. So, maybe he can have a better opportunity if he goes elsewhere. And I think that's probably part of why Texas and Davison appear to be going their separate ways. But, I think it's just, again, I mean, kind of grapevine talk, if you will, was like, hey, you got to have a different mindset to come into that Texas running back group. And this comes from people in Austin. You got to have a different mindset to come into that room, be confident, be competitive. And those are the kind of guys they're looking for. And what does that say about Jordan Davison? I'm not putting Jordan Davison down. I think he's a fantastic player. He's an awesome, awesome kid. I wish him well wherever he goes. But I just think Texas just maybe has their eyes on a couple other guys right now.
All right, so we start with a recruiting update there, and Jordan Davison looks like he and Texas are not going to be communicating a lot moving forward, but obviously Jason will keep his eyes and ears peeled on that one as it's a long way from December and that first big signing day. All right, let's get you an update on another name a lot of people know, and that is Dominic Williams. We'll literally have an update for you that involves while we are talking, but we should play the intro, right? Portal Combat.
Fight! Get over here! Finish him!
All right, Jason. Longhorn fans are hoping he goes from wearing purple to wearing the burnt orange. Dominic Williams, give us the update. As we left it last week, there were still a couple schools that had a chance to get a statement in before he makes his decision. What's the latest?
Yeah, I think when I was on with you last week on Wednesday, Chad, he was still in Austin at that point. He was planning on going to Colorado after that, then LSU. Well, he wrapped up his Texas visit on Thursday, and I called him. He was like literally just leaving the visit. He was in the car. heading, I don't know where, to an airport somewhere. Probably he's probably going to the Austin airport to fly. I don't know where. Well, I think he flew from Austin to Missouri. But long story, he ended up canceling the Colorado visit, switched it out with Missouri. So he visited Missouri over the weekend. He is, as you and I were discussing off air, he is going to LSU today for an LSU visit. I mean, based on what we saw on Twitter, I think he's en route to LSU today. What he told me on Thursday, and people around him were involved in the conversation too. Hey, he's going to take that Missouri visit. He's going to take that LSU visit, and then he's going to decide on Wednesday. The plan was to decide on Wednesday. He kind of at first was like, it'll be next week sometime. And then he said, okay, nope, it's going to be Wednesday. So, I mean, they're looking for Wednesday as a target date. I think that's flexible. It can be pushed back to maybe Thursday or Friday. But right now, the plan, the last I heard, was the plan was for Wednesday. Going into, he first visited Oklahoma. Everybody thought, okay, Oklahoma's got the first visit. There was a lot of Oklahoma buzz even before he hit the portal on. So he was like, hey, if this guy hits the portal, watch out for Oklahoma. He hits the portal. Everybody's like, okay, he's going to Oklahoma. Well, he immediately tells me, Dominic does, we're texting. He goes, man, Texas is high on my list. He visits Oklahoma, comes out of that visit uncommitted, visits Texas, and tells me on Thursday, and I put it in the war room, it was a great visit. He loved just the home feeling he had there and the family atmosphere. He's going to Missouri. Coming out of Missouri, Chad, I talked to someone last night. I got a text, and I was exchanging some text messages. There's a feeling, and this isn't me saying this, but I'm telling you, there's a feeling inside the Missouri program from people who spent time with Dominic Williams. They don't think it's Oklahoma and Texas. They think it's Missouri and Texas right now. Now, him going to Baton Rouge can certainly shake this thing up in a big way, right? With Bo Davis and LSU and everything going on down there. So, I don't know what to believe. Oklahoma offers his younger brother, who's a 2027 player. I don't know what to make of that. That's a whole other conversation. But I'm just telling you, a person I talked to who's really connected up in Missouri, and people who doubt that, this is the same source I used when Texas was recruiting Ryan Wingo. And we were out in front of a lot of the Ryan Wingo stuff, even on signing day when he delayed his papers and stuff. Same source told me, hey, Missouri people feel like maybe it's going to be Missouri or Texas for Dominic Williams. So I guess the good thing, if you're a Texas fan, the Longhorns are the one consistent here, because a lot of people are saying Oklahoma and Texas. Now it's Missouri and Texas. We'll see. Coming out of LSU, it may be LSU and Texas, but Texas seems to be the one consistent there. So I think that's maybe a good sign for Texas if you're reading between the lines, but I still think there's room for movement in this one too.
Well, and Jason, if I might throw in here, since I've become the unofficial Twitter stalker of the guy that's hanging out with Dominic Williams, I did double check at the RB coach. Here's the way I would wrap that up of the four schools. Oklahoma, there was the visit. Then there was all the talk about the brother committing, lots of videos with the brother telling the mom, the brother getting excited about it, all that kind of stuff. OU logo and, so proud of my little brother. There was one picture from Missouri, just them kind of sitting in a generic, place. We all remember the Four Seasons and the Lamborghini and the dinner picture from Texas. Like, it really felt like the handler, if you will, was trying to say, hey, this is what Texas is showing us. And then Missouri, I haven't seen a thing. Haven't seen one picture or video saying, oh, this is badass at Missouri. Man, this was great. But you're hearing that the relationship part was really good. And then all of a sudden this afternoon, we get an old video of him at like a previous LSU camp. Mm-hmm. And then we get some footage of his, some game footage from TCU. And again, the handler is trying to say, hey, referencing the SEC, and here's the aggressiveness he'll bring. And then we get a picture of everybody in the car, and it's like headed to this last trip at LSU. So that's the update from Internet Stalker of what they're going to be doing. So Wednesday, I guess, if you're telling me Wednesday's the day, that is the first day after, the closing of the portal tomorrow. And maybe that's the mindset of get these visits out of the way. And then once teams are starting to try to figure out, okay, who's really out there and who do we want to go get? He wants to, I guess, be one of those first, big names to make a choice. But as we're sitting here recording at, 4:15 on Monday afternoon, they may literally be on, it looks like they are on the way to Baton Rouge, So at this moment that we're talking, he and Brian Kelly might still be 100 miles apart, literally, in terms of all that.
Yeah, and I think with this one, I mean, he does need to decide pretty quickly because guys will start moving in for summer sessions. I don't even know, but probably in the next, I don't know when classes start, but probably the next couple, 2-3 weeks. And he may want to move in even quicker than that. If he commits to, let's say he commits to Texas this week, he may be in Austin by this weekend, just finding a place to stay and work out and stuff. But I still think, Chad, just kind of covering this one and following it from a distance, obviously, I think there's some room for a lot of late movement in this one. A lot of times when you've got 4 schools and you've got a high profile guy like Dominic Williams is, I mean, the market is what it is for defensive tackles. Is he a 5-star type talent? Probably not. He's not a first team All-American, but the defensive tackle market has made him incredibly valuable right now. So he's timed things well. Well, a lot of Oklahoma desperately needs him. Texas desperately wants him and needs him. I'm assuming it's the same as at Missouri and LSU. It's kind of like just having a silent auction at the last minute. People start getting crazy and like, okay, I need to throw a bigger number here and a bigger number here. In the days of NIL negotiations and things going back and forth to the last minute, I'm not sticking my neck out on anything. I'm telling you what I'm hearing, that the Texas visit went well. Missouri people seem to think that they're right there in the mix. And I'll tell you this, people kind of shoulder shrug at Missouri. Hey, Missouri's got a really good NIL package. And I'm not just talking with Dominic Williams. I'm talking overall. They have a surprisingly deep-pocketed NIL supporters that's helped them with really good recruiting efforts in the high school ranks. I'm assuming it's the same in the transfer ranks. But this one, I just feel like there's a lot of room for movement in this one over the next 48 hours or so. I don't even know. Will he end up deciding on Wednesday? Will he stick to that plan? Does he push it back? If there's still some back and forth between 2 or 3 schools, I don't know, but my gut tells me we're in for a bit of a wild ride on this one. And we may not have an answer until literally an hour before he announces or something.
Yeah, and of course, there's nothing that says he has to announce on Wednesday, but right now that is when they've said the announcement will be made. So
let me just say, all these. I mean, he's being smart, right? I was talking to someone this weekend. I said, I would be doing exactly what he's doing. Or Jakeem Stewart, a guy we'll talk about later. Go visit all these schools. I mean, I hate to use the word bidding war because that just has a bad connotation, but kind of in today's NIL day and age, that's kind of what it is, right? So, hey, man, you don't want to go to Missouri and say, nope, not feeling it. Nope, I'm cutting Oklahoma out. No, man, keep all 4 schools, think you're very interested. And it's kind of like if you had 4 job offers, right? You're going to probably act interested in all of them and probably take the one that has the best total package for you. That's what Dominic Williams is doing. He's got people guiding him and handling him. It's not just him, right? So I don't fault the young man at all. I think he's being smart about it. But a lot of times when you're doing that, there's a lot of crazy stuff that can happen in the late hours.
All right, recruiting hour on a Monday. We will transition to that rivals camp and some of the updated stories. And frankly, a story that if I'm a Longhorn fan, you know what? There's maybe a little piece of something missing. We will get into that. First, though, if you got something missing in the cupboard, Specs can help you. Here you go.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, Jason. So the Rivals camp was this past weekend in the Dallas area, correct?
Yes, it was in Coppell.
Right.
So was it north of Dallas? I think, yeah.
So if I'm a big-time Longhorn fan and I am going to play the entitled Texas fan today, there's a lot of things that feel good, but the title of today's show would bother me. So I got 11 guys drafted. I got a team that went to the playoff. I got Quinn Ewers looking like that. I got Arch backing him up. I got all kinds of stuff going on as I'm headed to the SEC. But Jason Sugamel is about to tell me that the number 1 guy in a recruiting class coming up is not hearing from the Longhorns. Do tell.
I was hoping we'd start talking about Boobie Feaster. We could have led with Boobie, okay? I mean,
we'll get to the Boobie.
Yeah, it's all fun. It's always
Boobie, but come on now.
Always good news with Boobie. Yeah, Jakeem Stewart, a guy that I just mentioned in passing a minute ago. And you know what's funny, Chad? You and I talked about him. Well, it was on Wednesday's show because we were previewing the Rivals camp. And this is a guy who's the number one player in the country in his class. He is a defensive end. He's at a prime position of need for everybody in the world wants that position, right? He is a freakish talent. And we were talking last week. Imagine what kind of NIL package Jakeem Stewart is going to command at some point, right? So, well, Jakeem, he's an interesting dude, man, because that guy has nothing to prove to anybody, obviously. But he just shows up at these camps and competes. He was at the Under Armour camp earlier this spring. He was at the Rivals camp on Sunday. He actually visited Oregon, flew from Oregon to Dallas on Saturday. I think he got in like middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning. Wow. And he's out there at 8 o'clock in the morning at the Rivals camp. Man. And like, I was talking to some guys, I'm like, that's awesome that he's here, but like, I don't quite understand it. And they're like, people that know him much better than I do just said, he just loves to compete, man. And he wants to compete against the best of the best. I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. I love that about this dude. Maybe that's why he's so talented, and along with his natural physical skills. But so Jakeem comes in and competes. No big shocker, wins defensive line MVP and just dominates. I mean, there are a couple of times where guys maybe slowed him down a little bit, but by and large, Chad, I mean, he was just getting to the quarterback rep after rep after rep after rep, making it look easy. Mm-hmm. So after the event, in Jakeem, 6'6", 266 out of New Orleans, St. Augustine. Early on, everybody just said, yeah, he's going to LSU because he's a Louisiana guy. He's going to go to LSU and stay in state. That may still wind up being the case, but he is kind of like we said about the TCU, Dominic Williams. He's being smart, man. He went and visited Ohio State. He went and visited USC. He went and visited Oregon. Texas is in play. I mean, all the big boys want him, including, of course, in-state LSU. Hey, man, make yourself marketable. Why not? Don't shut the doors on anybody. Well, Texas has been in play there. He's visited Texas once or twice. But after the camp ended, I go up and I said, hey, Jakeem, you got a minute for a quick interview? And he's always super gracious, super generous. Absolutely, says so. And I had my orangebloods.com shirt on, not a Rivals. I had an Orange Blood shirt on. Mm-hmm. And the person that brings him to some of these camps says, oh, you cover Texas? And I said, yeah. I said, I reintroduced myself. I said, I've met you before, but he goes, yeah. He goes, man, it's weird. He goes, he's not hearing from Texas at all. And I go, what do you mean? Like at all? And he goes, no, nothing. And I go, well, I know they had a coaching change at the defensive line, but that was a while ago, right? And you'd think Jakeem would be the first call that they would make. I was
going to say, when we've been hearing great things about Kenny Baker and
yeah,
right?
He's recruited other guys. I know they had some transition within the football support staff, Brandon Harris getting moved up and so on and so forth. And Brandon Harris is a Louisiana guy. So this person I'm talking to is like, yeah, I know Brandon and I know some other guys on the staff, but we're just not hearing from him. So I said, okay. And so I interviewed Jakeem and, we were talking about his other visits and he just was going on about Ohio State and Ohio State and Oregon and USC. And I asked him about Texas and he says really good things about Texas. He goes, yeah, I really like Texas. It's a great program and they produce great players and blah, 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 blah. But he says, I have not heard from Texas in a while. And I said, do you have an explanation for it? And he goes, nah, I really don't. He did say, Chad, though, he said, if Texas comes back in on him, he goes, yeah, man, it's not too late. I'd still definitely consider Texas. But this is the kind of thing, if Texas comes back in on him, he's not going to forget. It's going to put you kind of in a bit of a hole you're going to have to climb your way out of.
But to be fair, again, he has been to Texas a couple times, you said.
He's been to Texas I know at least once, I think twice. Once was with a kind of a group of recruits from Louisiana that were traveling and they came into Austin. And he did, his person that was with him said, hey, we're talking about upcoming visits, maybe in the summer. And Jakeem's like, yeah, he kind of had to think about it. And then he said, well, Texas, I was supposed to go to Texas, but he goes, I'm not so sure about that now. But he said, I'm going to go Ohio State, USC, Miami, LSU. He goes, I was supposed to go to Texas, but I'm not even sure. We'll see. It's really interesting. Like, these are not the kind of recruitments. I mean, everybody wants Jakeem Stewart. So there's kind of a running joke, though, like among media members, like which schools, and I'm not saying in a bad way, because again, this is the day of NIL. It is what it is. Let's put it out there. what schools are going to be able to afford Jakeem Stewart in the end? He is that big of a prospect.
Right.
He is going to command a major NIL deal. And, I don't know if Texas just thinks, hey, in the end, he's going to wind up at maybe staying in state at LSU. Maybe they just want to kind of spread their efforts and their resources maybe elsewhere. I don't know a definitive answer. Jakeem didn't know a definitive answer. Bottom line is, though, he has not heard from Texas in a while.
Interesting stuff there. All right.
He did say, Chad, let me jump in real quick. He said maybe they'll come by the school in the spring and maybe that'll kind of reignite things. So, spring evaluation period's ongoing. So we'll see if the coaches stop by to see him this spring, and maybe that opens up the line of communication. I don't know, but it's been a while since he's heard from me, he said.
Interesting. Yes. Obviously never, lot can happen between now and December, but just thought that was an interesting update. And obviously you did as well, because it's right there in the article, orangebloods.com. There's
it's
a nice
on the top of the article. And I said, I hate to lead with this, but I don't know where else to lead. Yeah.
No, and I thought we should too, because again, it's like, hey, this is the realism of the situation. Yeah. I know Longhorn fans love to hear the good news, but I think they also want to hear all the news and get the updates. So that's what you provide them, and I thought that was interesting with Jakeem Stewart. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. But as of right now, that Louisiana product feels like his list, at least for now, doesn't include Texas, but we'll see where that goes. All right, Jason.
Before we transition, Chad, one more. I was told, hey, man, like the Texas interest was legit. It wasn't just him like saying nice things about Texas in interviews. Like before this kind of lull happened, Texas was legitimately in his top 5. So it's not like Texas was way down his list and just said, it's not worth it. So again, I don't know a definitive answer as to why things cooled, but Texas was a legitimate contender for him. We'll see if that changes, but they're not right now.
All right, we'll keep our eyes peeled for that one. All right, let's turn towards something that may be better news for a Texas fan. Give me a Boobie Feaster update. Come on now.
My man Boobie, I love Boobie. Like, just a really cool kid. First off, he's a freshman in high school. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't act like it. But he showed up at the Rivals camp yesterday. And I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've seen him this spring. And every time he's rocking that Texas Longhorn backpack. So I said, Boobie. So I talked to him. I interviewed him. And then I said, hey, dude, let me get a picture of you with that backpack. I said, fans always get a kick out of that. Dude, he holds it up. He's smiling, big old grin, just pointing at it like, hey, look at this, man. So he's playing the game. But yeah, Boobie's always fun to talk to. Tremendous player. I mean, this guy's going to be a 5-star player when rankings come out for his class. He'll be a Decorian Moore type player. I think one of those top 5-ish players in the country potentially. Assuming he continues to develop. He told me busy spring. He said he wants to go to Penn State, Oregon, Texas A&M. LSU, TCU this summer. He visited A&M and LSU recently. He actually had a phone conversation with Chris Jackson, the Texas wide receivers coach, on I guess it would have been Saturday. He said the day before the camp, and he goes, "That's my dude. That's my guy, man." So he said he wants to cut his list down to about 10 at the end of the spring or early summer. Okay, and I asked him, I said, Boobie, I got to ask. I said, I think I know the answer, but what are the odds that Texas will make that cut? And he goes, dude, you already know. He goes, that's not even a question, man. So, it's super early for Boobie Feaster. But I do think if I'm picking right now, and this is ridiculously early, we're talking about a freshman in high school, I would probably pick Texas, right? I think LSU is going to be a major player there. He's originally from Louisiana. I think A&M, depending on what happens with their new coaching staff, if they're looking good, I think A&M could be a player there. He's going to be a national recruit, though, that's going to look at schools outside of the state of Texas. But if you said, you know what, I know it's early, but you have to put $100 down right now, I'm going to force you to, I'd put my money on Texas right now. I think Texas is in a really good position. Dude, we're talking 3 years from now before he signs, so a lot can change. But yeah, I think Texas is a very strong player for wide receiver Boobie Feaster. Great player, great kid, be a great pickup for anybody.
Nathan jumps in the chat, says, we need Boobie Feaster. We need him. Capital letter there.
Yeah.
For the people that aren't familiar, Jason, he's a DeSoto guy, right?
Yeah. Yep. DeSoto guy. So he knows Jonte Cook. And I mean, DeSoto's got guys all over the place. But, Boobie's funny because I kind of joke with him every time I see him. Like, Boobie, I said, I know I just talked to you like a few weeks ago, but I was like, you're kind of a rock star on Orange Blood. So I said, I got to interview you again. And it's true, dude. Like, it's kind of a running joke. I'll write a column and Boobie won't be mentioned, and people will be like, okay, whatever. What we want more Boobie. Give us more Boobie Feaster. So he's kind of just a rock star recruit on orangebloods.com. So even though I've talked to him a bunch, I'm always like, all right, Boobie, let me go ahead and get you again for another interview.
So by the end of his time at DeSoto, you talked about it. So he's what, class of 27? So
Yep.
this upcoming season is his sophomore year in football.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
So by the time he's done, do you think he's the Jonte Cook of that team? Like, is he a guy? Will he be like a wide receiver number one, you think, when he's coming out?
He'll be a wide receiver number one this year, probably as a sophomore. Listen, just to play varsity as a true freshman at DeSoto is incredible. And he doesn't just play. I don't have his stats in front of me, but he had a very successful statistical year as a freshman. He's been going to these camps, Chad. I saw him last year. The first one is 8th grade, and he goes out and dominates these camps, dude, including yesterday. So, I mean, the guy is just a freakish talent. He works his tail off. He's kind of like Jonte, and then he's got a lot of natural skill, but he also works hard to maximize his talent. I have a lot of respect for Boobie, and that he trains hard and he works hard. Yeah, he's got God-gifted natural abilities, but he works really hard too, and he's very focused and very driven. So, yeah, he will definitely be a wide receiver one. Seriously, we'll see, how he continues to his trajectory of his career. But, I'm expecting Boobie Feaster will be a top 10, top 5 national player, 5-star player, certainly during his senior season.
And by the way, before we move on to other things, Christopher, how dare you? Way too early to be talking Feaster. Let's talk current recruits and who we may go after. How dare you, Christopher? How dare you say it's too soon? Did you not hear us say he is a sophomore in high school? This isn't like
he's a freshman in high school. He's still a freshman.
But still a freshman, going to be a sophomore. This isn't some weird Lane Kiffin 7th grader discussion. Yeah. Like, come on, man.
Hey, and I was talking to another reporter, right? And this is at this camp. And I mentioned Boobie Feaster, and God, I've talked to so many people yesterday. I can't remember who it was. And this reporter kind of said, like, I just hate talking to guys that young. And I said, dude, I get it. That's been my MO forever. I'm an old man at this point, so I certainly get it. But I go, trust me, Boobie's a guy you want to talk to. He's fun. He's interesting. He's a good interview. He's a badass player. So I was like, I totally understand. I don't like interviewing freshmen, but Boobie, I'm always going to make an exception for him.
All right, Jason, we'll get some more thoughts. I want to get a couple more notes from you maybe on the camp, but real quick, we did have a couple of chats, just kind of circling back around after the Davison conversation. Any clue who would be the running backs that we are looking at coming from Bryce? And you may have already mentioned it, but just to kind of give an idea of a name or two, if a Longhorn fan's freaking out about the Davison report, that maybe that's kind of a recruiting breakup. Some of the guys that they're going to be looking at. You mentioned Simon earlier, right?
Yeah, he'd be the one that I'm focused on. And, he visited Texas for the spring game, which feels like forever ago, but it was, 9 days ago, I guess. Came out of that visit, just rave reviews about his experience. He might have a decision, Bryce, as early, James Simon we're talking about out of Louisiana, as early as like next week. He said possibly early May. So, I'll be touching base with him, and maybe that correlates with the Jordan Davison thing. Maybe that's why Texas said, hey, you know what, Jordan, we're just kind of filling up here. I've already got Ricky Stewart committed, James Simon. Like, I'm not fully convinced that James didn't give indication when he was in Austin that, like, hey, this is going to happen. I just need to go home and kind of talk to people and cross some T's and dot some I's, so to speak. So that's the guy that I'm looking at. There's a couple other fringe guys. We'll see if they start, if something falls through with Simon, if they maybe bring someone else in. But right now, it's kind of, to me, it's really James Simon or bust to round out this 2-man class.
Gotcha. Also, Sark After Dark had a question on defense. Says Texas coaches are about to hit the road to evaluate prospects. Where is Kenny Baker going? Any intel on where Coach Baker may be headed?
Not yet, but he'll get down to Florida to see their commit, Brandon Brown, their commitment down there. Honestly, people love to see that. Where are they going? If there's a prospect that's on their roster, they're going to go see them this spring. So, and also they'll go see, a lot of times they'll just go hit schools that don't have prospects just because they want to show their face and kind of introduce themselves to coaches and things like that. So those coaches will hit 3, 4, or 5 schools in a day. So I would expect Kenny Baker will be just about everywhere for every one of his targets, especially being that he's a new coach. Yeah, I would expect that he's going to get out for just about every one of those. And, we'll see. I would assume that will be trips to Louisiana, but we'll see if he wants to get down here to see Jakeem Stewart, but we'll see on that.
Yeah. And by the way, Christopher says knows a fourth grader that's a beast, and he likes Texas. Christopher, if you can just get us some film, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Does he have a cool name like Boobie Feaster, Christopher? Because if he
I was
is,
gonna say,
we'll take a look.
if he's got a cool name, I'm interested. That's one of the things that'll pull me in. Give me a cool nickname. I'm all about that. Thanks for those chats. We got over 400 folks in the Specs chat. We do appreciate you for that. So, Jason, any other notes coming out of the Rivals camp? I know the crazy weather that went through Texas over the weekend messed with that camp a little bit. Outside of Stewart, who you mentioned, and Boobie Feaster, anything else we need to know about?
Yeah, definitely. You're right. The weather didn't help a lot. They were able to move it indoors, which was nice. Although it was like ridiculously muggy in there. But
I bet. My God.
But it was crazy. But it actually obviously kept us from the elements and ended up being a really nice day Sunday afternoon. But I do think the weather caused some guys to maybe not show up that were originally intending on it, and which I totally understand. So, but I'm just going to kind of go down my list here, Chad. A couple of the guys that I talked to. Brock Harris is a Rivals 100 potential 5-star type guy. He's that good. He's a tight end out of Utah in the 2026 class. He visited Texas on Friday of last week, and then he visited Baylor and TCU. So while he was in town or in the state, he hit some college campuses. Then he went to the camp. He looked really good at that camp, by the way. I was like, okay, I see why this guy's so highly rated. But he did rave about the Texas visit. Jeff Banks was there. Sark was not, but he got to hang out with Jeff Banks, got a Texas offer, and said, hey, I'm thinking I might come back for the Georgia game in the fall. And I said, hey, I know it's early for you and you just visited Texas. He said, yeah. He said, I don't have a list, but he goes, Texas is up there. He said, they're definitely high, quote, definitely high up there for him. And he wants to come back possibly for the Georgia game. Jonathan Cunningham is a linebacker, 2025 linebacker at North Crowley. He visited Texas in the spring, and he came up for a spring practice. It wasn't a spring game. He came for the spring practice. He's got a Texas official visit set up. He's got TCU, Kansas, Arizona State visits set up. Really talked highly about his relationship with Johnny Nansen, his experience with Johnny Nansen on that visit he took in the spring. I asked him, I said, hey, dude, I don't know if you have a list necessarily, but like, where does Texas kind of fit in among those 4 that you're taking visits to? And he said, Texas is at the top. So, I'm not putting a future cast in for Jonathan Cunningham just yet, but I might not be too far from doing that. I think Texas has a great spot there. And there were some really good young offensive linemen. Drew Evers, John Turntine is a guy we've talked about. These are both 2026 guys. They're both going to be high national ranked recruits. Both of those dudes spoke very highly of Kyle Flood, both very highly of recent visits they've taken to Texas, including Turntine came in for the orange-white game. Turntine told me again, he's got a cousin who goes to school, not at UT, but goes to school in Austin. He's got a sister who's going to be a freshman at Texas. Or no, I'm sorry, not a freshman, a transfer into Texas. She's enrolling in the summer. These are big-time elite national guys. They both like Texas a lot. And I'm going to butcher this name. I got it right at the camp. I'm going to butcher it right now. You ready?
Yeah.
Pupungatoa Katoa, I think is right. Pupungatoa Katoa is a big lineman, about 6'3", 360 out of Euless Trinity. And he came in, it was April 13th, he visited Texas. I interviewed him after that one. I interviewed him again yesterday. Loves Texas a lot. Said, hey, I don't have any favorites. I'm still looking at everybody. But he goes, man, I really liked what I saw from Kyle Flood when I came in and watched that scrimmage. And then I'm going to give you one more. There's a couple young guys we can talk to if we want to fill this up. But Jonte Newman is an offensive lineman out of Bridgeland who just committed to Texas A&M. Let me make sure I get this date right. April 19th. So we're talking 10 days ago. Committed to Texas A&M. I saw him there. I said, hey, Jonte. I said, hey, I know you just committed to A&M. Congratulations, dude. But I said, are you still talking to Texas? And he said, are you going to keep the lines open with Texas? He goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take that Texas official visit. I said, okay, well, now I got to interview you, dude. If you'd have said, nope, I'm shutting it down, then I could have said, okay, Jonte, have a good day. But I said, now I got to interview you, man. So he's going to take a Texas official visit, Southern Cal, TCU, and he's going to visit A&M, of course. A&M gets him, I think, maybe the first visit. TCU was going to get the first visit. Now they maybe pushed it back. A&M might now be his first official visit. So there's a chance he might go to A&M and be like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and shut it down and cancel these other ones. But right now, he is planning on taking a Texas official visit along with USC and TCU. Seems really happy with his A&M commitment, if I'm being completely honest. But he just said, you know what? It's recruiting. I want to just compare apples to apples. I get to do this once. I want to take some official visits. I really like Coach Flood. I love Coach Sark. So he's going to go ahead and take potentially or probably take a Texas official visit. I said, what is it that, has Texas, makes you want to get back up to Austin? He goes, just what I know about Coach Flood and Coach Sark and the trajectory of that Texas program. So interestingly, he just committed to A&M 10 days ago, but still leaving the door open a little bit.
Well, Jason, can you imagine? I mean, we're sitting here. I got 63 days till Texas is in the SEC. Those kind of battles, any battle that really does become like a house divided battle, or even those Texas and Oklahoma battles, which we've already seen, everything just ratchets up as we head towards a December signing day where you've got Texas and Texas A&M actually playing a football game in the lead up to signing day for the first time in forever. And they're both in the SEC. It's going to be such a nutty fall for all of this stuff.
Puts a smile on my face, dude. That's right. Like, that's what I've been waiting for. Listen, I remember when A&M first left the conference, and I wrote a column on Orange Bloods, and I said, you know what? That's not good for football. It's not good for Texas fans. These kind of games are what make college football special. And I got shouted down by everybody on Orange Bloods. Screw those eggs. Yeah. Whatever, we won't miss them. And now you're seeing, hey, come on, man. This is what makes college football special. These rivalries, this history. So I'm with you, Chad. I'm glad it's all coming back, man.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff there. And won't be the last one. That will not be the last recruit anybody hears about that recruits to one or that, commits to one, but is still talking to the other and wants to take those official visits. It's going to get wild as that continues. All right. So obviously talking about the rivals camp, anything else from the camp you want to hit?
No, there's like a young quarterback, Peyton Houston, out of Shreveport Evangel, real fantastic young player. He's been to Texas a couple times. Visited UT a couple weeks ago, really raved. He said, I got to sit in a quarterback meeting room with Coach Milwee and just loves the vibe from Coach Milwee. Said Coach Milwee's going to come evaluate him this spring, and he's thinking maybe an offer will be presented. And I think if it is, I think Texas will be a very strong player. He's a 2027 guy, so he's another freshman, but really, really good player. And then one more, I'll just quickly touch on two more. Zane Rowe is a 2027, so he's a freshman, defensive end, tight end, committed to Oklahoma on 21st, so 8 days ago, kind of out of the blue, man. He's been to Austin a bunch. This is a guy that's a big-time national prospect, right? Been to Austin a bunch, always raves about it, and then I did not see it coming, but he committed to Oklahoma 8 days ago. I saw Zane at the camp, and he had Oklahoma gloves on, and I said, hey, Zane, I said, are you completely shutting it down, and are you still going to kind of keep things open with other schools a little bit? And he goes, nah, man, I'm completely shutting it down. I'm going to Oklahoma. So we'll see. I didn't interview him after that, but I mean, that's a long way to go. I mean, a lot can happen between now and when, his senior year. So we'll see. But he did say he's completely locked in with Oklahoma. Taz Williams, one of my favorites out of Red Oak, the receiver, 2025. I was talking to Taz a little bit, and things have just kind of cooled with him in Texas. He's kind of looking elsewhere and focusing elsewhere. So doesn't look like Taz will be a part of this receiver kind of recruiting rotation for Texas, barring some changes. But right now he's kind of looking elsewhere. I think Texas is too. So, and then I guess the one more thing, Chad, not camp related, looking forward to this weekend is the UIL State Track and Field Meet. So I'll be down on the UT campus. DeCorian Moore will be down there. Kelshawn Johnson, another speedy receiver. I need to go through my whole list. Cade Phillips is a DB. Texas is recruiting. Keelan Russell, the quarterback out of Duncanville, will be competing. So I'll be down there this weekend, get a little more recruiting intel out of that state UIL track meet.
Well, and it's a perfect segue, Jason. I wanted to mention DeCorian Moore real quick before we wrap up, because as we're talking about all these ingredients coming together for Texas, Anwar's Sunday Pulpit article pointed out that DeCorian Moore liked 6 different tweets about the draft for Texas, different varieties of different types of tweets, whether it was a Byron Murphy tweet about Seattle, it was different positions, but it was all about the draft picks. And when we were wrapping up House Divided today, Cody Carpentier was on with me as Catch is dealing with the get the power turned on and moving everything. And Cody looked it up after the show, and he's like, oh, you said there were 6 of them. He said, I looked up, all I can find is a couple LSU things that he might have reacted to or retweeted. So one of the things, if you're going to end up seeing him around track, I'd love to know a guy like that, sending out that stuff on social media, just how much does all this Texas success, weigh on him a little bit, even though he's an LSU commit. They had a decent draft too, but for him to like 6 of those things, if I'm Brian Kelly, I'm thinking, whew, we have got to keep recruiting this kid hard because it is far from over.
Yeah, and you know what? Let me tell you something. He liked those tweets from Columbus, Ohio. He was visiting Ohio State last weekend.
Is that right?
Yes. Unless he came home and did them all on Sunday, because he came home on Sunday, but he was at Ohio State on Friday and Saturday. So
hey, that's the most modern thing I think I've heard on a show in a while. So you're telling me that the badass from Duncanville was in Columbus as an LSU commit, liking stuff about Texas.
Yeah, I didn't notice the like. So, but apparently, if that's right, yeah, that's apparently correct. Yeah, so.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Best of luck to Decorian and everybody that'll be a part of the track and field championships this weekend. And real quick, before we close the door, Christopher jumps back in and just, I think, perfectly explains how a Longhorn fan might think of both rivals. Aggies are little brother. They are tolerable, but OU sucks. There you go. There it is, Christopher. Most Longhorn fans that I'm around that will talk about the two of them, there'll be some version of the, Aggies are family that you like to fight with, but if Oklahoma was on fire, I would not put them out with anything. Water, extinguisher, that type of stuff.
I am not a fan anymore, right? I'm a media member. I got to be as unbiased as possible, but I grew up, I went to Texas, and I was a fan when I was at Texas, obviously. I grew up in a small town, a very rural town, where it was 99% Texas A&M, I swear. And like when I went to college, Shad, I was the only person who came to University of Texas. There was probably 50 people that went to A&M or Blinn or whatever. So I came up here, I didn't know anybody. You talk about being intimidated. So I just grew up with this I don't say hatred, because I do have respect for A&M, but like for me, it was the other way around. Like Oklahoma, I could tolerate them a little bit. Right. A&M was always the one that got my goat. Yeah. So, but now I'm just kind of like, hey, I like good environments. I like good games. I honestly, I want them all to be good, because those make for fun Saturdays when they're all good and they're playing each other. Right.
Yep. And when the 3 play each other, they're going to throw an SEC logo on the field, and I'm still going to freak out when that happens for the first. I'm going to freak out the first 10 years of that. I don't think I'm going to get used to. I'm not going to get used to that one when Texas and OU get together and there's an SEC logo present. Speaking of logos, Darwin, we'll just throw that up. Little hook 'em emoji on the way out. Thank you for that. Thank you for checking it out. And again, speaking of checking it out, make sure you get over to orangebloods.com. Check out Jason's articles. Check out the update he did on Dominic Williams. We'll wait on that in the next couple days. He's literally either at LSU or on the way as we are recording this show today. But that is the big transfer target in the portal for Texas. Real quick before we get done, if you're wondering about Takario Davis of Arizona, all signs are pointing towards him staying at Arizona. He plays in the spring game. He wore that new number 1 that he changed to, and afterwards he and his teammates were having a blast. So, Jason, if that dude's planning to transfer, that's a hell of a curveball coming for Arizona.
Yeah, that would be a little shocking. I think we kind of reported that in the war room that we're expecting him to people at Arizona are expecting him to stay in Arizona. And before we log off, someone said, Sukamel, I thought you were from Iowa. That's true. I was born and raised in Iowa, moved to Texas in the 5th grade. So I don't remember what age I would have been. So I consider myself a Texan at this point. My kids are born in Austin. So I'm a full-blown Texan at this point. So.
There he goes. It's the old saying, right? You got here as fast as you could.
That's right. Yep.
Not born specifically, but just get here as fast as you can. That's my wife's story too. Not born in Texas, but she got here as quick as she could. All right. And one more. Hang on. Let's just see. One more delineation. I have no respect for A&M. OU is at least a blue blood with legit football history. A&M is not. And Ehi, I'm assuming is how you say that name. If that's your logic, that would switch it to what Jason is talking about. If it's all about you're not respecting unless there's big time, football clout, then yeah, you got to lean Oklahoma and not A&M, obviously. So there you go. There you have it. And the wild world of the new SEC rolls on. All right. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. Hopefully tomorrow on Orange Bloods Live, we will have Jeff Ketchum back as he'll get everything hooked up at the new house. Check out orangebloods.com. I'll throw it up one more time. And as we close it out here, again, check out all the great articles, all the stuff. Thursday night is War Room night. And on Wednesday at 4, we'll have another recruiting hour for you. Always be checking orangebloods.com because Jason will have the very latest for you as he hears it. Everybody take care. Thanks to Specs for being a great partner. Thanks to all of our partners around here. And everybody enjoy the end of May because by the time we do another recruiting hour, or the end of April, I should say. It'll already be May by the time we do another recruiting hour. That's Wednesday at 4. Everybody take care. Check out all the other great stuff we got for you on the YouTube page, including my short video wrapping up the whole draft, all the history of those 11 guys and what it ultimately means for Texas. Longhorn fans, bask in it. It's historic stuff coming out of the draft. Y'all have a good Monday. And